and welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. When I first started this podcast, I made a wish list of people I wanted to chat to. I've still not achieved my most wanted artist, but I came close early this year. But one of those first names I put on that list was none other than Eric Michener, better known as Fishboy. If you're not across Fishboy, then you definitely need to go back and right that wrong immediately. I truly believe Eric is one of my favourite songwriters, with albums like Albatross, Classic Creeps, Waitsgiving and Art Guard providing a perfect example of his broad storytelling skills and the way in which he is able to construct and craft dazzling character-driven narratives that connect like satisfying jigsaw puzzles. That is to say, if you want an album to sound good and feel good too, then darn it, you need to listen to his discography. To this day, I believe that Art Guards may actually be my favourite album, solely due to the satisfaction obtained from this lyrical narrative. Of course, in recent years, 2021's Waitsgiving may have overtaken things as his most popular record, especially if you're in Eric's home of Denton, Texas, where the annual Waitsgiving celebration takes place. However, it's been a few years since the last album was released, and last month, that all changed with the arrival of Bravest Neighbor. Described as a 12-song examination of how a game of telephone in an imaginary community can touch on isolation, embarrassment, estrangement, and heartbreak, I'm not lying when I tell you this is a very good album. The lyrics are impressive, the music is accomplished, the narrative is stunning, and the additional musicians on here, I mean it was recorded by Kid Koala in Montreal, so you know it's going to be good, are stunning. I don't want to give anything away, but I urge you to listen to this record at least once before you hear this episode. I've listened to it close to a dozen times, and I'm still discovering things. In fact, Eric and I actually discussed whether to make this episode spoiler-free or not in the lead-up to our chat. Oh, in case you can't tell, my guest this week is indeed Eric Michener, who was kind enough to spend a couple of hours on a Saturday afternoon talking down the computer to a dedicated Australian fan about his craft, his records, and his love of music. Now, I will admit there are a few audio hiccups at play here, namely that I can hear my own voice echoed through Eric's audio, so if you're hearing a little bit of doubling up when I'm talking, that just means my countless hours of audio editing have not quite reached their peak. Sorry about that. Anyway, have a listen to Fishboy's Bravest Neighbor, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Eric Michener, thank you very much for joining this episode of the Trusty Chords podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
So for those who might not recognize your name, could you give me a quick few words to introduce yourself and tell me why we're chatting today?
Yeah, so my name is Eric. I have been in a band called Fishboy since I was 15, 16, which was like 25 years ago or something like that. And I have made 8 albums now. I'm putting out my 8th album. And for the past 20 years, all of the albums have been story-driven. And they keep getting more complicated and more in-depth. And that's it. You should listen to this episode if you're interested in songwriting, because I think the Fishboy has a very unique way of songwriting, and I'm not going to say anything else.
Well, I think you've done a fairly good job, honestly, because I'm actually very glad we're able to chat today, because back when I launched this podcast, you were pretty much one of the first names I put on my guest wish list, actually. So I'm glad we're able to speak at last, because you mentioned, if you like songwriting, you should listen to this. I do love some songwriting, and I have to say, you're probably one of my favorite songwriters in the way you make things work.
Oh, thank you.
So it all comes full circle, I guess, just like your albums. But I guess before we get onto said albums, what I love to do at the start of these podcasts is go back in time to where a love of music first formed. So do you have any recollections of your earliest memory of when music first resonated with you?
Yeah, so I was around second grade. My brother started handing me cassette tapes. I have an older brother. He's 8 years older than me, and he got really into music. I guess he was around 15 and I'm around, 8, 9. Is that 16, 17, 8, 9? And he started making me mixtapes and handing me albums that he made with tapes that he dubbed to tapes. And so I think I got like They Might Be Giants Flood was one of my first albums. The Weezer Blue album was one of my first albums. And then I got all these little snippets of all these different bands that he was listening to, and that was a big that was a big thing. Also, now I'm remembering, like in second grade, the movie Wayne's World came out. That was my favorite movie of the year. I wasn't old enough to go see it, but my brother took me. And there's a bunch of like incredible music cues in that album, Bohemian Rhapsody, that movie. And then Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey came out that year. And there's a premise in that movie about how like a single song can save the world. I later stole that for my album Albatross. I stole that premise.
I was going
But
to say that sounds very familiar, actually.
but both those are very heavy, like music is important, you know, and music can be fun. And yeah, that's probably where it started. And then my dad was listening to classic rock all the time. So I got a love for classic rock and you know, the Beatles and all the big ones, right?
So obviously there is a nice sort of like diet of the classic, the slightly niche, if you will. And I guess as a very labored segue there, I should say, you mentioned, like the idea of a song saving the world. You mentioned your Albatross record. Obviously that like focuses around like some Buddy Holly, Texas. You're from Denton. That's a very labored segue. So I should say, did you grow up in Denton?
I grew up about 20 minutes, 30 minutes from Denton. Yeah, in the
Right, right.
suburbs. More Denton's like a small city.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was going to say, obviously, that city has a very interesting presence in music, largely thanks to the Mountain Goats, which
Right.
obviously is you've written a song about that famousness
Right.
and everything. But
Right.
I guess I should say, for those unaware, what is the Denton music scene like?
Yeah, so it's because it's a college town and it's tough to permanently land here. It definitely an outlier. I've lived here, for 20 years, but it's about every 5 years there's a turnover of the music scene, and so it changes every 5 years. Um, and yeah, they have everything. It's the University of North Texas is a jazz school, so you have that element to it. People come from all over the world to study music. But then there's people who aren't music students that come here just because they know it's a music town, and they'll study whatever. Like myself, I studied film and I was like, but I really want to just start a band. I really want to move to Denton to start a band and play music. I'll just figure out something else that I like to study in college. That happens all the time, all the time. And, and yeah, so and also like Dallas Fort Worth, it's at the top of the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. And there's not a lot of other like music hubs in Dallas Fort Worth, even though it's like one of the biggest metro areas in the nation. So you find a lot of people straying from the other cities and coming up here. So it's a good mix. Like I said, it's a weird island because it's hard to like permanently stay here. But yeah, and it's like definitely a blue dot, and that's like a weird. That's its whole other weird thing about being in Texas. Uh, yeah, it's
Yeah,
very unique.
no, that makes sense because I mean, whenever I'm in Texas, I'm pretty much just in Dallas, and I'm going from Dallas up north towards Oklahoma and everything. So any of the music that I've seen in Texas has just been in Dallas. But it is obviously nice to know that there are some other musical hubs, and especially some ever-changing ones as well around the place. So good
Yeah,
variety.
it's Dallas. Dallas, you'll find that the places where there are music in Dallas, there's typically not people living close, so everyone's commuting in and gathering at this place. Whereas Denton, is everyone lives there, and they're just a lot closer. So, and then they're connected a little bit more.
Well, I guess I mean, at the end of the day, we aren't here just to talk about Denton, just to talk about Texas. We're here to talk about you and your music. And
Sure.
you mentioned before about like getting into playing music. So,
Yeah.
how did you first discover the world of playing music? What was that journey like?
Yeah, so when I was in like fourth grade, right, like I said, I got a copy of the Blue Album, and my friends and I were into this alternative rock stuff. We were like singing "Loser" by Beck at the bus stop, and we were like, we want to start a band. We started a band without playing any instruments, and we asked the teacher if we could play a song from our band. And she's like, okay, the last 10 minutes of the day, you can play a song from your band. And we just stood and sang something. It was kind of dumb. But anyway, like I said, I've had this idea of being in a band since I saw Wayne's World, Bill and Ted's, right? And so I joined the school band in sixth grade, and I was a percussionist because that's the closest thing to being in a band, right? Maybe I can get a drum set. And so from there, I learned scales on the xylophone. My family got a piano from my aunt, and I was writing songs, right? I had a little cassette thing, and I started writing songs. Started writing Fishboy on the cassettes, and the next few years, by the time I got in high school, 3 years later, I was playing shows in the band hall. It's Fishboy. The first Fishboy show was upstairs at the band hall on the band hall piano.
Wow. So I guess if you were to go back and look at those early songs you were writing, and this is a question I love asking folks, how do they hold up all these years later? Would you hang your hat on those songs, or are you sort of like, yeah, a bit rough?
You know what's weird is that you may have seen this, but I say my first show was at the band hall, but I played some talent shows before that. And 2 years ago, I got this email from a stranger that said I was digitizing VHS copies of my family's home movies, and we have a performance of you playing a song called Snake Man at the middle school talent show. This is a treasured family video that we always rewatch and talk about. Again, I have no idea who these people are. And they're like, we had to digitize it and save it. And here, we want to give you a copy. And they sent me this copy of this song, Snake Man. And it's fine. I mean, it's good. I wouldn't release it. I wouldn't put it up for streaming. All that stuff. There's a bunch of stuff labeled Fishboy that people ask me for pre 2002, and I'm always like, I don't want this to be the first thing someone hears if they find Fishboy, so I'm not really gonna make it super accessible. It's a lot of references. It's a lot of pop culture references. That was a big thing in the late 90s, early 2000s, before Wikipedia, before the internet. And especially for young people who didn't have things to sing about, they would flex. Hey, you remember Alf? I'm gonna put Alf in a song. I don't know if I actually put Alf in a song, but that was the type of humor that was happening. So I
mean, considering that I play in a band where our shirts had Alf on them for a while,
yeah,
I definitely understand the idea of referencing that pop culture, which people are sort of like, oh yeah, that feels familiar, that feels nostalgic. I can lean into that.
The first Fishboy shirt had Bob Saget on it, his headshot from Full House, and it just said Fishboy, and it was you guys remember Bob Saget?
Everyone loves Bob Saget.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Because that's the sort of question I love asking folks. If you actually go back and revisit that early material, how do you feel about it? And I guess the fact that you're sort of well, I don't want that to be people's introduction to the work, tends to indicate that you're well, it gets better as time goes on.
But I mean, the first official Fishboy thing on the internet is 2003, which at this point, is 23 years ago. I'm proud of that stuff. That stuff's still listenable. It's just you can't put it all up there.
Yeah,
I can't put the stuff when I was 15. I'll happily put the stuff when I was 19.
I mean, look, there are those sort of diehard nerds who love to really dig deep, and I'm sure one day some of those releases will turn up, and you'll be like, well, I can't do anything about it now.
They can find them. Let me just say, you can find them if you search hard enough in the depths of the internet. Not that you will, but
there's a chance that folks like myself may have found some of that stuff, but I'm not here to shine a light on the dark recesses of your musical history.
Well, so what's your opinion of it?
I enjoy it. I mean, I'm the sort of person. I'm the sort of person who, I don't know, I feel from someone who's been a musical reviewer and everything.
Yeah.
I'm always the sort of person who can see good in anything. I can always see the appeal. And I feel like, if someone is like, oh, hey, I heard, Waitsgiving and I'm really keen to listen to early Fishboy, oh, this isn't the same thing. I can see why they might not like vibe with it. And I can see why you might not sort of like see the Fishboy of today in that music. But
I
I
think
enjoy it.
yeah, I'm fine with people hearing it in context, but I know the internet puts things out of context a lot. So I've always said someday when I have time, and I get some sort of fan club going, then it's like, yeah, I'll drop a link to all that stuff to people. But I'm always working on something new.
Yeah, and I will get on this stuff new in a moment. But I guess when you were actually sort of making that music at the age of say 15, 16, did you ever think that you would 25 years later be making music still? Like, did you think that that was always going to be part of your life?
Um, no, I mean, I didn't think that far ahead. I I I don't know. I was taking it one step at a time. I'm an introverted person, so like it takes a lot of courage to get me to play shows and get up and perform in front of people. But then when I started, you realize that like, oh, okay, you can just kind of look at no one, and then it's like a great release, right? Great alter ego type of thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
but no, I don't know. I haven't been thinking about it at all.
yeah. Because it is quite fascinating actually to hear you say that you're an introverted person like that. Because like I mean, like I can see it, but you hide it very well. And like just the mere fact you're able to share music so frequently as well indicates that you're obviously happy with putting yourself out there, which is
Well,
impressive to be honest.
I mean, I feel like I'm slow. My last album was 2021, and this is 20.
Yeah,
It's
TikTok. Yeah, it's been
five
a
years.
while.
Like, yeah, TikTok. I mean, I'm also a video editor. Like, that's my day job as a video editor. So, like, and I slowly learned. Not that anyone would go and look at old videos of me talking on the internet, but like, um, I mean, I slowly figured out how to speak in front of camera, uh, and give myself as an editor something that I would want to play around with. So that's yeah. It's still like it's still like half coming from an introverted place where it's like, no, I just want something to be able to cut together. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I mean, look, I should say, thank you very much for dragging yourself away from, I don't know, Premiere Pro or something like that
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
chat, which is, but
Oh yeah.
I guess on the topic of music again, like one thing I do enjoy is the fact that, the official bio for Fishboy notes that the project would like to politely let you know the music is best listened to in album format,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
really love. As an album person, I love that. And I guess, at least from what I'm sort of listening to me, this sort of, it really came around the time of the Albatross record, which is the first foray into, I guess, for lack of a better word, the rock opera format. I should say, is that a term that you agree with, or are you sort of like rock opera is a
Yeah.
loaded term?
So I try and steer away from the terms rock opera and concept album because I've found, and maybe it's just me, maybe it's me projecting this, but I've found that when people hear that stuff, they think of like homework and they start procrastinating listening to it. It's like, oh, this is something I'm going to have to pay deep attention to. I'm going to put this off and not check it out. So I don't necessarily use those words, even
That's
though
completely fair.
sometimes you have to. With the whole rock opera thing is like the reason I wrote Albatross. One of my big inspirations for doing that was, and for those of you not listening, Albatross is it's like a power pop album from 2007, and I was listening to the Who, right? Listening to the Who for the first time. Love early Who, love garage rock Who. I got to Tommy, and I was so excited because I had heard Tommy was this story thing. I'm going to film school. I'm learning about story structure, and I get to Tommy, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I cannot figure out the story from just listening to Tommy, right? And so I'm like, I want to make an album where the lyrics explain everything and it's right there and you can get the full story without any extra stuff. And so in that sense, to me, that was like an anti-rock opera. right? Because I hadn't heard that type of album. And in general, I make stuff that I want to see in the world as a fan that I don't see. Um, and then I think, 2007, like 2014, I made the album An Elephant, which was the same type of power pop, distorted guitar style. And at that point I was like, okay, let's get a little bit more loose with the lyrics. And that one has a comic that goes with it. So it's like I can get a little bit more abstract with the lyrics if people are reading the comic and figuring out what's going on. Yeah, that's a long answer to rock opera. I generally don't think of them as rock operas. I generally say like story album.
Because I like whenever I think of the phrase rock opera, I start thinking of like your typical gatefold records from the 70s,
Yeah,
and like, Roger Dean has done the artwork,
right.
like a Yes album or something like that. And it feels very bloated. But the thing about like the stuff that you do, it feels so, what's the word I'm looking for? Streamlined isn't necessarily
No,
the
yeah,
word I'm looking for, but it feels good. Like it feels satisfying, I guess, because like I've been re-listening to the discography over the last week, and even just yesterday morning, I was on the train, and my wife looked at me. She's like, "Why are you making a weird face?" I'm like, "Well, I'm listening to the song Halftime at the Proper Name Spelling Bee." And I was like, now I have to explain to her the general concept of this song. And she was just like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, yes, but you haven't listened to the full record. Listen to the full record and suddenly it makes sense, etc. Um, that's also a very long answer for me, just to sort of say, interesting morning on the train.
yeah,
But um, but I guess as well, like, like you have this sort of story concept album. Sorry,
yeah,
this story album. I want to stay away from the word concept as well, around the time of Albatross. And then I guess it's like classic Creeps is when things have become a bit more of an interconnected study of characters, though. Is that
right.
right? I guess so. Where did that decision come from? Because it's a hell of an undertaking to connect them like that.
Yeah, so yeah, it's tough to go back but to my mindset, but in general, I keep like big ideas for albums. I keep a list in the back of my mind of things I've always wanted to do, right? And like I said, I was a big fan of like 60s albums. And when I got to Tommy by The Who, I was like, this is not what I wanted. I love 60s British invasion music. I love storytelling. And I could not find the thing that I wanted. Like even something like Sergeant Pepper's, it's like there's no through line to any of this. This doesn't make sense. But the 60s was littered with these individual songs about people where you repeat the person's name over and over again. Um, and I was like, why isn't there an album where there's a series of these songs, 10 songs, and when you sing about the person, it connects to another person. So I had that in the back of my mind for years. I would love to do something like that. And finally, I was like, let's do it. Let's try it out on Classic Creeps. And then, like Classic Creeps, um, there was stuff in it that I didn't love. I don't love the ending. Classic Creeps I wrote in order, like because Albatross I wrote in order. Like, song one, song two, song three. I would get at the end of the first song and be like, what's the perfect way? What is the perfect vibe I would want to get into the next song? And so I did that with Classic Creeps as well, because I love albums that flow into each other. So so with Classic Creeps, I was like, we got to the ending and I was like, I don't know how to end this album with all these people. So they end up just like exploding in a factory explosion. They all end up dying. And it didn't, I mean, the story wise, that's fine. And the music wise, I was like, I'm not super happy with how this ends. So then when I get to Art Guards, I was like, we're working toward an ending. There's going to be a food fight with everyone. And then with Waitsgiving, it's like even more my bucket list thing for Art Guards was, this idea that everyone is in like a big fight, is in a big scene, like a food fight scene. And then my bucket list for Art Guards or for Waitsgiving, my bucket list for Waitsgiving was, okay, now I want to end the story album of all the characters in a heist. I've never heard a heist song. You introduce all the elements to the heist and then you execute it. Um, yeah, long story short. I just wanted a 60s thing that was connected.
Yeah, yeah, because just when you sort of mentioned that, you're not too satisfied with the ending of Classic Creeps, I'm like, yeah, I think looking back at it now, I guess it does sort of end in a less than satisfactory way compared to what comes later. But I mean, that's also totally fine. But I guess that's actually a nice way for me to actually ask as well. Like you mentioned sort of like this idea of like 60s sort of songwriting and everything. I guess, are there any particular songwriters that you particularly look at as, hey, I admire them? Or,
I
or I
mean,
guess any sort of any songwriter that you're sort of looking at and sort of saying like, hey, they did it well.
I always go back to Ray Davies. I always go back to the Kinks. Like you can hear, once you know that, you can hear it all throughout my albums. I mean, his ability to tell a story in a short amount of words and still have it be funny and still have it like hit emotion is just amazing. Amazing. No one does it like that. Um, especially when you get to like you learn every Beatles song and then you're like, okay, well, what else is around? And then you find the Kinks and you're like, well, this is just as amazing, you know? And um yeah, that's my big one is the Kinks for sure. Especially from the 60s.
Because the second you said the 60s, I was sort of thinking it would not surprise me if you're sort of looking towards acts like the Kinks, because you can definitely see that. And I should also say one of my biggest regrets, and obviously there's still time, I was unable to interview Ray Davies a few years ago.
Oh
I
man.
had the opportunity, to come up, but I was flying from different cities or something, and it just wouldn't work. And then he didn't have the time, and I'm like, well, I'm sure it'll happen. But then again, I said the same thing about Brian Wilson. I'm like, I'll catch him next time.
Yeah.
Look at him now. So
I mean, I love
yeah,
all those other guys. I mean, I love Beach Boys, I love Beatles, I love, Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies is one of my favorite albums. Um, Forever Changes by Love is one of my favorite albums. In the 60s Rolling Stones stuff is great, but in the Who, basically every big British invasion is
yeah.
like that's been my stuff for a long time. But I think the Kinks are my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And I guess as well, like, back on that sort of topic of the idea of like putting out an interconnected record like this,
Yeah.
obviously to do it, like, as I said, that's a big undertaking. And to do it well is even bigger. So, like, did you have a lot of apprehension about sort of starting this sort of thing? Because if you mess it up, it can be a mess. But if you do it right, it'll land really well. And I feel like it did.
Yeah. So I mean, like I've said, I take things one step at a time. So if if you go back through my albums, which it sounds like you did, you'll see that it just slowly escalates every time. So Classic Creeps has the character song thing. Art Guards has the character song thing, but everyone is an artist, right? Now there's a through line thematically, and if there's an actual ending, right, in Art Guards. And then Waits Giving elevates it even more. Everyone's dealing with patience. There's a through line, but then there's like multi generational things, right? So you see a flash of the town throughout history. And then the newest one, Bravest Neighbor, um, it deals with the narrator is switching around for every song, which is something I hadn't tried, and that was on the bucket list of like I want to do a song. I want to do songs where the narrators switch and you hear perspectives from different people. So I know that I can do it up to a certain point, and then it's just like, well, let's just see if I can go a little bit further, and so that kind of gives me the confidence. Is just like just turn it up one notch.
Yeah. Just constantly aiming higher and trying to improve the craft, isn't it?
It is, but it's all yeah, for better or worse, you know. It does take me a while to figure it out, especially if you're trying to meet all of these big requirements, right? I have all these goals I want for every song, but then I want to make it work as a single song, make it emotional, make it hit some kind of emotional, also kind of make it personal, right? Make it something that I'm dealing with that will help me out, help me figure out life a little bit. Um, on top of like, the bravest neighbor thing is like, well, everyone's name has to start with D, just so I don't have to think of names. And then like, well, everyone is dealing with courage, and I want to put them in a scene at the very end. By the way, bravest neighbor, spoiler, if you haven't listened to it yet, bravest neighbor ends in a giant chase scene. That was one of my bucket list things for this album, is that I've never heard a song where there's like what's that fairy tale, like a gingerbread man style chase scene where the chase keeps getting longer and people keep adding on to the end, and it ends in chaos. Yeah.
See, how embarrassing would it feel now if I said, well, actually, I can name 5 other songs right now that end that way? You'd be like,
I
well,
mean,
I guess the next album I have to do 2 chase scenes or something.
and
Open and end with chase scenes.
that's another thing, is like you have to assume that someone else has done it. You have to assume that there's someone else in the comments is going to be like, oh no, so and so did this. I remember, and I've told this story a bunch of times, but I wrote half of that album, An Elephant, right? About the ghost of the elephant killed by Thomas Edison, who's now getting revenge in an all ages revenge thriller with a ghost elephant. I got halfway through writing that, and a Bob's Burgers episode came out where the kids write a rock opera about Topsy the elephant getting murdered. And I, had this hard moment where I was like, do I scrap all my work? I love these 5 songs I've written, or do I just move forward and accept that every idea has been done before? And I decided to accept it, move forward. And that was a huge life lesson with me. That's also the point where I was like, I'm gonna start singing about things in my hometown now. I'm gonna stop getting ideas off the internet. Maybe that will help me, my originality. But yeah, for sure, you have to accept that someone out there is gonna have done it, and just trust that your own voice is good enough to be unique, right? And I think if it's personal, then it doesn't matter. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And part of me is just sort of thinking that if I was in that situation, I'd just sort of be like, all right, let me just go back and edit the copyright date on this one and be like a couple of
Yeah.
years before Bob's Burgers or something.
Well, I'm a tiny band. Like no one. And I mean, and like there's a window where Bob's Burgers was popular and people were talking about it, and then that window has kind of faded. I'm still not popular enough for to
Well, put it
compete
this
with
way.
them, but
In this household, I'm pretty sure my wife has heard more about Fishboy in the last week than she has about Bob's Burgers. So
nice.
take from that what you will. But I guess, I personally discovered your music around 2011. I think it was that track Duncan from the Lauren Records
Yeah,
compilation, You Stay
sure.
With Each Other. So I was hooked on that. Then obviously a few years later, An Elephant, and then Art Guards comes out. And obviously you've obviously heard me talk about that record before,
Yeah,
because it's truly one of my favorite records, like,
yeah.
ever. Like, I think someone actually asked me a while ago, like, yeah, we can see the well, I guess it's the cover artwork, if you will, behind you there. Because someone actually asked me a while ago, it's like, oh, what is your favorite album? And I'm like, in terms of albums that are actually written well, I think it has to be Art Guards, because it is such a
Amazing.
satisfying record. And I think if anyone hasn't listened to it, like, stop this podcast right now, pause it so you can go back and finish it afterwards, listen to that record, and come back and tell me I'm wrong. I don't think you can. But like, because it was also, I think we mentioned it before we started recording, because I also saw you live in 2017, just around the time that Art Guards came out, and yet listening to it, I was just sort of like, yeah, he's making some good songs. These characters he's singing about, they're quite interesting. Then at the end, I'm like, they're all coming back.
Yeah, yeah,
I see what he's doing now. Okay, yeah, this is pretty cool.
yeah.
And yeah, that was when it went from being a great idea to an exceptional idea in my mind. And
Thank you.
I'm sure I could talk about that for ages. Um,
I think that one is great because the case for that one being the best one is that it's short. I was able to keep it short, and I was able to keep it the length of a set, right? I'm able to like play the entire thing front to back with telling the whole story. And the last two after that, it's like just a little bit too long to where I can't get it all in. And yeah. So if I'm saying, if there's any negative about the newest one, it's like you're gonna have to take a bathroom break if you see those live. But some people like long albums. I like short albums.
Well, I mean, yesterday morning, as I said, I was on the train listening through, listening to Albatross, and I was like, yeah, actually, I can listen to this on my, train ride from my house to the city. Try to listen to Bravest Neighbor. I had to finish it afterwards. I was like, well,
right.
Almost there.
Right.
But, I guess
just
I should
kept getting
ask,
longer.
Well, I mean, why not? You do good work, so keep it going. But I guess on that topic of art guards as well, like when it actually comes to these sort of like records that are sort of like narratives, I should say, is there sort of, for lack of a better word, a moral involved in them? Because I know that when I listen to art guards, for example, it actually ends with a rather explicit moral where you specifically say, if you're an artist, do not give up. Days might be easy, other days it's hard. And I feel like that's such a wonderful summation. But do you create these records with that sort of sentiment as a bit of a underlying message? Like, is that the plan, or does it sort of present itself as it comes along?
Yeah, no, these last three, I mean, I would say An Elephant as well. As you get older, I'm in my early 40s, well, mid 40s, let's be honest. How old am I? Anyway, as you get older, you start asking yourself, like, why am I even making this stuff? What do I have to give to the world, even though giving to the world is in massive quotations, because the likelihood of anyone hearing my thing is very slim. And so I tell myself, okay, two things. If no one hears this, why would it be worth putting into the world? Number two, if everyone accidentally hears this, why is it worth putting into the world? Right. And that started definitely with art guards, because the message of art guards is that you have to keep making art no matter what. Like, it's a benefit to your life, in general. Like you said, days it's easy, days it's hard. And then
I think technically you said that, but sure.
as I said, and then with Waitsgiving, I was a young dad dealing with patience. And that's another message about, like, yeah, it's worth making stuff even if no one hears it, right? That's in one of those songs. And you got to be patient, and you got to do stuff because it's priceless and worthless, right? That's in the last song. And then with Bravest Neighbor, I'm dealing with a chaotic world, trying to just get through life, and I'm seeing a lot of people online, seeing my friends who would probably need courage. I know I need courage, and so I really started thinking about different ways the people right next to me are dealing with courage. And definitely explicit message, but like it's a wide topic that I give myself to explore song by song. Yeah. But I am thinking, like, am I going to get something out of this? And is someone else going to get something out of this? Because that's another, I was thinking about this today. That's like such a big hang up of people sharing their stuff. Why am I important enough to share my thing? It feels so egotistical. So the only way that I can do that is to say, this is maybe going to help someone, right? This maybe someone's going to get something out of this. And I have to do it for that person, and I have to treat my art as a separate entity and say, I'm doing it for this art that exists, not for myself, but because I know that I'm the only one who could possibly get this little thing out to the people who it will make their lives a little bit better. That sounds super egotistical coming out of my mouth, but that's like the only way I can trick myself into just into going, into
Well, I
sharing.
should say, I mean, I should say, like, you've, like, although it may sound grandiose or egotistical or something, it does what it needs to, because I think that's one of the reasons why art guards actually resonated with me is like that line, if you're an artist, do not give up. Like, I'm someone who I've made music for 25 years myself. I've only shared like 4 songs and they were covers. I've only played live like as a solo artist once, and only one of those was an original because I'm the sort of person who is like, what am I bringing to the world? Why is it worth me sharing things? And especially like for a few years, I was editor of Rolling Stone here in Australia. The second that people actually look at me and they sort of say, "Why are you sharing stuff? You critique stuff, so your stuff better be damn good if you're going to stand up there and share it." So I've got this huge hang up about sharing my own art, but I listen to art guards and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go home and write a damn song. Every time I listen to that record, I feel that way. I'm yet to write any of those songs. I plan to, but we'll get there. Um, but at the very least, the inspiration exists, which is the
Yeah.
important thing.
I mean, it's a big part of just making stuff. I mean, you don't have to share anything. That's another thing. It's like you can absolutely make art and music just to figure yourself out or figure the world out, and that's like completely that's probably the most beneficial thing, whether or not you share it or not. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
sharing stuff
Well,
is overrated.
well, thank you for sharing, regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, we are slowly getting towards Bravest Neighbor, but I should touch on Waitsgiving briefly, sorry, because that was the most recent record, and I'm sure it's a story you've told before endlessly, but I should say, what is the elevator pitch for Waitsgiving? Because that itself is a record that's taken on a life of its own, thanks to the annual Waitsgiving event, which is also my way of saying talk about that too while you're there.
Well, first, I want to say that I think the best art in life everywhere is the art that you cannot elevate or pitch, is the art that you tell someone, I can't explain it, you just have to hear it. So I'm always trying to make stuff like that, but in a world where people only want to hear an elevator pitch. And so I still have to practice it. Waitsgiving is 10 songs about 9 characters, all dealing with patience. And the first character stumbles upon a time capsule in the 1990s and reads that her birthday is that the time capsule was buried on her birthday. She takes it to City Hall and they turn the date on the time capsule into a holiday that celebrates patience. And you go through a set of characters and you find out how they're dealing with patience. A lot of them are artists, and you slowly get to the Waitsgiving anniversary, 20th anniversary, and you find over the course of the album you meet these musicians who it turns out have buried their final album in the time capsule in the 1970s, and they're trying to get it back during this holiday that has now taken over the town. And so you get this heist song and then a very satisfactory ending that I won't spoil at the end of the song. I don't know if that's an elevator pitch. To me, if someone said that to me in an elevator, I would think they were crazy. So,
Well, look, it's the sort of thing where if someone is on an elevator and they're looking at you and saying like, "All right, buddy, like this is a long elevator
yeah,
ride,"
exactly.
they need to have patience, which is the very point of the record. So I guess it works. It works well in that sense.
And like I've been trying to practice my Bravest Neighbor elevator pitch for a few years. Like I finished writing this or this album in 2024, and it's just been kind of a slog to get out, get recorded and put out. But man, I just like last night at midnight, I posted a 1 minute explainer, and it has started taking off. People get it. So I feel like finally within the last 24 hours, I've been able to get the Bravest Neighbor elevator pitch going.
Actually, I should actually just quickly. I want to get onto Bravest Neighbor, but I should
Sure.
also just mention I didn't touch on. Well, actually, I started to touch on, then I veered away the annual Waitsgiving event
Yes.
because
Sorry.
you've been no, you've
Right.
been doing that for a few years now, and it's one that I mean, my wife is a flight attendant. I'm pretty sure I should be using some of those free flight miles to get over there and
Yeah.
actually take part in it
Yeah.
at some point because it's a hell of an undertaking, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it is and it isn't. So in Waitsgiving, I put in the lyrics of the first song, I put that a date, knowing that, okay, everyone is going to at least like tweet about the day of the fake holiday, and I'll put it in my calendar, and I'll be able to say it, right?
It's clever marketing, is what it is.
And so so I write Waitsgiving, and it's this story about this lost album over time. The pandemic happens, right? And I'm like, oh my God, this would be such a great album to have during a pandemic, but I haven't recorded it. It might end up being a lost album, just like the album in the story. I recorded it at home. I take it to my friend to mix and put drums on in the summer of 2020. He turns it into a fantastic sounding album, adds some amazing drums to it. We put it out in the spring of 2021, and like they're like, we can't have a release show. Shows are still not back, and I'm like right around the time the like vaccine was announced, I'm like, everyone just meet me at the town square, and I will play you the whole album acoustically, and we'll do it on Waitsgiving. I'll do it on the actual date from the album. And I mean, there was like 20 people there, maybe 40 people there. They all loved it, and I was like, okay, well, let's do it again next year. And it has just slowly gotten bigger and bigger, and it's funny because like every single song in the album, you can kind of point to a location in downtown Denton and be like, look, that building burned down just like the building in the story, or here's a single grave of the founder of Denton that's randomly buried in the on the courthouse lawn. Let's walk over that when we walk over to that when we talk about the song about the grave digger. And yeah, it's because I set the date, and because I feel like I have to be on the hook, then it's like this is happening whether or not I'm prepared. And and like, yeah, thank God, because I definitely would not do it.
So basically, what I'm hearing from that is that you can never be like out of Denton on May. Was it May 17th?
No, I
Like,
can't.
yeah. So you always have to be there. Otherwise, people are going to get a boombox in the city hall and start playing it by themselves.
And this past one, I was, yeah, because I'm always thinking like, how do I like one up the next Thanksgiving? So this last one, I was like, okay, we're gonna bury a real time capsule, and people tell me stuff you're waiting on, and so and I like couldn't no one like I couldn't find a place to bury it, so we buried it in like the flower bed of this bar off the square. And like those suggestions were like, here's my student ID, please bury this. Like, okay, all right. I mean, it was not as what's the word? Um, I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting people to say or bring, but I just wanted people to participate. But it was fun. Everyone had a fun time, and we're gonna dig it up next Waitsgiving, and then comically show off the things. Part of the fun part of the event is that I don't know what I'm doing half the time, and I'm so awkward and just like kind of riffing on things that are happening to me in public in the square, and we're just navigating it all together. I don't have a crew, I don't have a sound person, I don't have like anyone helping me, so I just I'm like, okay, you're the sound person, you hold this prop, you got to do this, because otherwise it's not going to happen. And I'm just a huge like improvisational scramble, and it's really funny, it's really fun.
I mean, that's definitely one of those times where you have to be really good at making sure that like stage banter is like really ready. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
just going to be like, you're just going to be dying on stage,
And
or I
I'm
guess
not
dying
good at
downtown.
stage banter, but that's what's funny about it because it's like it's authentic, you know? It's and
Yeah, exactly.
it's what I think what I think is special about it is that none of them are ever going to be the same, and you really get this sense of this thing only happened this way once. Even though I've been playing the same song, I've done it 6 times now. People keep coming back because they know that something weird is going to happen will only happen one time.
Well, I'm sure one of these days I will actually make it over for Waitsgiving because the amount of times that I'll wake up on like the next morning because it'll be like 5 a.m. or something here, and I'm just sort of like, oh, that's happening again. And you know, I'm out on an early morning walk or something, and I'm like, oh, everyone seems to be having a good time in Denton.
What's
Um,
funny is like it's like half new people every year, and then there's like a core of people who are like, no, we're coming every year, and then the other people are like, oh, this is my first time here. And then a lot of people are like, this is going on too long. I don't actually have the energy to walk around for 2 hours or whatever. And it's also like, that's fine. Like that just makes the ending more special.
I also just love I was just like randomly thinking in my mind, like the people who come every year, it's like, you know, the Grateful Dead for Fishboy fans, and
Yeah.
it's just like fish heads or something. I don't know, it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
starts sounding really weird.
Yeah.
But look,
I
enough
think I
about living in the
call
past.
I was trying I think I came up with the name The School of Boy for my fans, but I don't think it's taken off. I was like, you can't say
Is
School
that
of
because,
Fish.
yeah, as I
It's
say, because
too
people thinking School of
obvious.
Fish, then yeah.
But I don't know. The School of Boy. That's kind of dumb too. I don't know. I'm still coming up with names. Give me some
Well,
suggestions.
I mean, as I said, all I got
Chat.
is fish head, and that doesn't work.
Listeners, give
um,
us suggestions.
Yeah, exactly. If you're one of the dozens or single digits amount of people who actually listen to this podcast, by all means, feel free to hit up Fishboy, Yo Fishboy on socials. But look, enough about living in the past and think about that. I need to touch on his new album properly. So,
Yeah.
look, Bravest Neighbor, because we're recording in advance but sharing out later, it arrived back on July 24th. That's some seamless
Yes.
podcast magic right there. But look, tell me about this record. Don't give me an elevator pitch. Tell me about it. I've listened to it numerous times already. I adore it. It's so densely packed, but I'd love to know what is the story you're telling here?
Yeah. So again, it's about courage. It's about the different ways um, people experience courage in an everyday manner. I very consciously did not want to make a bumper sticker pennant flag waving, saying "Be brave." I wanted to really boil down with what it means to have to be brave, have courage in an everyday scenario. And um, again, it's like 10 characters, and they are all living in a cul-de-sac, in a Texas cul-de-sac. And I got hyper fixated on this idea of songs where one person is telling you the story of someone else, right? They're saying the name of someone over and over again. And then it occurs to you as a listener that that person is a character in the song. So just by the nature of them being in their own story, the entire premise is unreliable, right? It's an unreliable narrator. Think of like Jolene by Dolly Parton, right? That song is not about Jolene, even though she insists it's about Jolene. It's about the narrator's weird hangup on her relationship with her husband and this person Jolene. Or like Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. It's like I cannot trust anything you're saying about Billie Jean. This song is not about Billie Jean. It is about you. And that falls back on this idea of like when we tell people stories about someone else in our life, the information that we include uh, kind of just tells us stuff about ourselves, right? This person is, my brother, and they're so good at this. They're so great at this. They're so brave in this way. And it's like, why are you including these specific things when you tell me about your brother? What does that say about you? Um, I also like the idea of in all my songs, like the narrator ends up taking it over. So by the end, you're like, of course, this is a song about you. You're not telling me about this person at all. And that's like a funny thing that happens just in like everyday conversation when someone just is just like, oh, you're just talking about yourself. You told me you were going to tell me about your brother. Anyway, that is something that was my big, like, I want to do an album like that where it's all characters and they're all talking about other people. And then what if I could make like a full circle where each person's talking about another person? I have the thing. So I ended up like drawing like the whole characters on the back so you can see that this person's talking about this person who's talking about this person who's talking about this. And it turns out that everyone in the story is telling a story about how this neighbor is the bravest neighbor because of X, Y, and Z, and then you get to that neighbor singing a song, and they are so insecure about themselves, right? They don't think they're brave at all. They think this other person is super brave. And when you get to that person, you see that person thinks this person is super brave. And it just goes into a circle till you realize that like everyone is equally brave. Everyone is equally scared in their own way. And I hope that when people listen to it, you know, they have a new perspective of courage in general. I hope they have a new perspective of how they probably have a lot of courage in their everyday life, and how the neighbor that they may or may not know is probably dealing with their own stuff, is probably dealing with their own levels of courage. And in general, you know, there's a line in the album that's just on the second song, and then the second to last song, it's like, I think about it all the time, right? It's like I never thought about it, but now I think about it all the time. And my goal in general is just to get people thinking about their neighbors, thinking about, you know, what they might be going through. So, have I missed anything? Right. And so the ending, the ending of the album ends in a huge chase scene throughout the neighborhood, right? It turns out that all of these stories have been read from a journal that a dad is reading his kid. And a stray dog grabs the journal as they're telling the story outside. And the kid has to chase the dog with the important courage-filled journal throughout the neighborhood. And she sees all of the different characters as she's running through the neighborhood. And they all kind of get closure for their story. And yeah, it's revealed that the whole thing was a story within a story within a story by the dad who is just trying to make his kid feel brave. Spoiler alert. Go listen to it doesn't matter. I mean, look, does that make it even worse if you does it make the story worse if you know the spoiler? No, probably not. I hope.
Well, put it this
any
way.
of my fans,
Put it this way, at the start of this podcast, I'll be putting in a nice little, what's the word I'm looking for? A call to action for people to actually listen to the record beforehand. So by this point, if they're actually doing what they should do, and if you haven't, shame on you listeners, listen to this record, listen to it 2 or 3 times, and then look back on this spoiler and say, oh, that's what I missed.
Yeah. And the thing, all the characters have like D names, right? And it gets like more and more whimsical and like unrealistic as the story goes on. And it kind of gives you hints. If you go back and re-listen, you'll see that there's hints that that everything is just a little bit off. And then when it gets to the ending where you're like, oh, the dad is making all this up. Well, that makes perfect sense, you know? Because why would everyone on one block have a D name, right? Why would this jacket start talking?
Look, that is actually something I was thinking of as well. I'm thinking, why is the jacket talking? But then again, I didn't think too much about the whole D names thing, considering that classic Creeps, everything started with an A. So I was like, maybe it's just the world we live in here.
Yep.
this narrative world that you're placing this within.
Yeah.
But
There's also like connections. You should go back and find the connections to the other albums. I don't know if you saw those.
I actually don't think I did come to think.
Yeah.
I think there was a
They're
couple of
buried
things.
in
Well, I
there.
mean, yeah, I mean, I think there was at least one song where musically I was like, this sounds familiar to a different one, but it's probably not what you're going for there. It was probably more lyrical, I'm assuming. Um,
Yeah.
but I guess as well, like, this one comes following your longest gap in albums to date. So you said it finished it back in 2024. How long were you working on this one for?
So I started writing in like 2022. Um, the brief, the nugget of an idea happened in 2022, and slowly started writing. It takes me a while to write, and I started. Wish I had a journal, but I just started diagramming like the circles of how I wanted things to connect. And I was like, this will be so amazing if I pull this off. If like there's a full circle of people singing about each other. And and yeah, I finished it in 2024, and the summer of 2024, I was so excited. And I had a band, but and we learned like one or two songs, and it wasn't, I didn't love it. It wasn't it was fine, but it wasn't it's super interesting, and it was taking a long time because everyone was busy. And so I called, um I posted a random song online, a little bit of oh my gosh, I'm spacing out. I'm trying to get all this in one thought. Um yeah, so I posted that song Only Truth online, me a little bit playing it, and I was acquaintances with Eric Kid Koala, and I saw he liked it, and I was like, okay, will you call me, talk to me on the phone, and like, will you give me some advice about how to do this? Because I don't know if you know Kid Koala. Do you know his stuff?
I do, yeah. He's a great, great musician.
He is just such a like a creative genius, and he puts on these huge shows with like puppets and props and musicians, and tours just these magical things around, and just has all of this huge wealth of creativity and ideas. And I had been in contact with him since 2015. My friend Switchblade handed him a CD that he bought at a record store with a price tag on it. And Kid Koala was like, "Is this your band?" And he's like, "No, I just think you'll like this." And he's like, "Okay, well, I'll check it out." So he was really into it in the car, listening with his kid, and we became acquaintances then. And so uh, I messaged him. I just talked to him on the phone, and I'm like, and we talked for a long time, and I'm just like, would you? I don't know if this is something you even do. Do you record other people? Would you want to collaborate on this? He's like, yes, absolutely. We'll find a date. Come up to Montreal and bring your demos, and we'll flesh them out. We'll work on them. And like this dude, Kid Koala, by the way, is he's someone who needs a full documentary. If you're listening to this and you don't know who he is, you're gonna have to look up his entire bio. But he started out as like a turntable, acrobatic turntable DJ in the '90s, and he has all these amazing scratching records, and he's a feature guest on eh, these albums like Lovage, Handsome Boy Modeling School. Oh, he does the turntables on the first Gorillaz album.
I was gonna
He's
say
in
he's on Gorilla's album, yeah.
he's in Deltron 3030. He's the DJ of Deltron 3030. All these just incredible records. And then he has this whole leg of his career that's very soundtracky, very ambient, where he puts on these stage shows with puppets, and that's only scratching the surface of Kid Koala. So he's like, my next year is very busy. I'm doing the Deltron 3030 anniversary show, and and he like directed a movie, an animated movie that's taken him 7 years to get off the ground because that's how long animation takes. And he's like, I'm also taking this to film festivals. It's like, those are two very different things. And now you have time to like make a Fishboy record of a random dude in Texas for a week. He's like, yeah, come up. So, yeah, I like stayed at his place. He has all this amazing, cool vintage gear and like just random stuff from his entire life. And yeah, he and like the best part was that he was a Fishboy fan and was giving me notes that no other engineer had ever given me. Like whether it's like narrative style notes or whether it's like delivery notes. You know, when you're a band and you work with an engineer, they're not really like going to give you like, yeah, that vocal delivery maybe was not as, you know, hitting the mark emotionally as it could. It's like that's not something any engineer would tell you, you know? And so he's like, no, as this thing works from a storytelling perspective this way, and you should do it like this. Wow, this is unlike anything I've ever worked. Unlike any process I've ever worked on before. So I'm just like incredibly grateful for him. And yeah, he cut a bunch of like my tracks from my demos onto vinyl and then scratched it back into the session. Which is like, no one does that unless you're a scratch turntable DJ. Like he has a lathe in his basement, and yeah, he's like, okay, we're gonna make this drum track here, and then I'm gonna cut it, and then I'm gonna scratch it back in. Incredible. And also like I'm seeing this weird stuff, and he's not saying no to like, it's like, hey, can we put this Theravox on this track? Like, do you know what a Theravox is?
I don't, but I think just based on what the name sounds like, I might have an idea. But
It's
feel
like
free to explain.
it's like the theremin thing from Good Vibrations.
That was
Where
actually something I was going to ask because I was listening to the record again this morning. I was like, "Is that a theremin?" I think it was what the second or
yeah,
third song.
yeah,
No,
the
it's
second
further around.
song. Yeah,
Yeah, second song. Yeah,
I was like, we got to use this. And you're like, okay. And so there's that weird siren on the second song, and then like I find out he had like a timpani in the basement. I'm like, we got to get that timpani, man.
how big is his damn basement? Like, he's got a lathe down there. He's got
So
a timpani down there.
he lives and works out of this a big flat. It's like two stories, yeah. And there's all these props in the bottom of his basement, and yeah, it's nuts. It looks like, I mean, you walking into it and there's like props hanging everywhere and weird keyboards hanging everywhere. And it feels like you're in, you know, Andy Warhol's factory or like the Jim Henson studio or something. It really feels like a magical place. But yeah, so I was like, whoa, you have a timpani in the basement, we gotta get it. And he's like, okay. And we roll it out. I'm like, okay, where are your timpani mallets? He's like, I don't know, man. Yeah, we have one. They're falling apart. And so I'm like, I can do it. Like I said, I was a percussionist in 6th grade. I can make it work. So we put all this timpani all over everything. Marimba, he had a big marimba we put on everything. Or we put on one song. And he's just totally up for like trying stuff out. And it was awesome. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Because I like listening to the record and like hearing sort of like some of the scratching and everything. I'm just sort of like I can't imagine what this record would sound like without it. Like it sounds so different to previous Fishboy records, but it still sounds so. It sounds fresh. Feels unique. It feels like a totally different direction, which is great.
Right. And
Not that the previous direction was bad. I should point out.
And like I said, like he's up for stuff, but he's also, as a fan, he's like, no, you don't want to do that. Or he's like, this is better stripped down, you know, keep it minimum. There is a lot of stripped down stuff on the record where he stopped me from throwing wacky stuff all over it. So, I mean, in my mind, half the record is super sparse, which is also awesome. Yeah, I have an equal love of like incredibly sparse, stripped down things, lo-fi things, and a love of like going over the top. So we're trying to find that happy medium. I think we did. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as I said, it's a stellar record. Definitely one I think that everyone should be listening to. It's definitely already one of my highest rated records of the year, I should say, because
Oh, thanks.
it's so satisfying to listen to. But I guess as well, like you mentioned, sort of the idea of being like sparse and then going over the top. And again, a very labored segue, which is what this podcast is all about. I do want to briefly ask about some of the songwriting as
Yeah.
well, because as I said before, songwriting is something that you do very well. And this record feels like a masterclass of it.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I guess when you actually sort of develop a character and write about them, how do you go about it? Like, is it a case of working out the narrative, assigning the characteristics need to be included, or is it exploring who they are, or that sort of thing? How do you go about it?
Yeah. So, um, like I said, since because of Classic Creeps, I learned to work toward an ending, right? And think about it from a story perspective. So I typically get a really quick melody idea and I pair it with an idea on the wall. By the way, like let me just turn this. This is my wall of sticky notes. I'm not gonna turn it. You can pause that and read those later. But on the right side of the wall of sticky notes are all ideas I would love to use someday. Blur those out if you can see those later. Um, or words or phrases. Anything I think would be cool in a song. And um, and so then usually I'll just be playing, as most songwriters do, I think. You'll be playing guitar or piano. Come up with a cool melody, and I'll be like, ooh, that could be this thing. That could be this character that I think I have a kind of idea on. Or that could be this type of chorus. Um, for like that song, Decatur, right? I had that idea. It's not a problem till it's a The chorus is, it's not a
I love that
problem,
line. Yeah.
not a problem till it's a problem, and more than often, it's probably not. Don't try and solve it and cause a problem out of a problem you haven't got. So I had that, and I was like, well, what is that character? That's the saddest thing in the world if someone is telling you not to worry and you can't help it, right? Just and that's it takes courage to embrace that worry or whatever. You come up with a general premise, and then I try and after I come up with the premise, and then I come up with the structure. I think I want it to end this way, story wise, structure story wise, not music wise. Like I want it to end kind of this way in this spot, and then then I'll kind of go through it and figure out um the verse chorus verse stuff, and then one of my notes is like, okay, who's singing it? What is their perspective on this character? What is this character maybe eventually going to sing about someone else? um the Classic Creeps had this rule that was I'm gonna sorry, this keeps going on. Classic Creeps has the rule where it's like you got to mention someone else so that that person has a song later, and then that rules in Art Guards and Waitsgiving. So you got to mention someone else so that the song's connected by two people, the person singing and then someone else, and um, and then it's just like all personal stuff because it's like what is the root of the thing I want to say, right? And in that one it's like anxiety. I would like to tell myself that it's okay to be anxious and okay to worry, as long as you understand it, and you're what's the word, you're self-aware of what is happening to you, because you won't be able to escape. worry. No one lives their life without worry. So it takes courage to worry and understand what is happening. So to answer your question, and then, so I have all this stuff on sticky notes, right? And then every line on this album, by the way, if you listen to it, is an Easter egg, right? Pretty much every line references something else that happened on the album. So I have them all up at the same spot, and I'm like, what can I put in this random second verse that will be an Easter egg to something else? And then because they're all up at the same time, I'm just slowly piecing stuff together. And yeah, that's it.
Because that sounds so dizzying, but like, because every time I listen to something that you've sort of written, I'm sort of thinking about how is it constructed, and it's a sort of thing where I can only sort of imagine, and I don't know if this is true, but to me, it almost feels like this sort of songwriting could feel a bit claustrophobic, for lack of a better word. Like when you're writing a standard song, the world is your oyster. But when you're writing a song in which a character needs these certain qualities, needs to advance the narrative, needs to scan lyrically, needs to fit, to carry a melody, and how do you tick these boxes? Like,
yeah.
does it feel like you've got many opportunities where you can flex this creative muscle, or are you sort of like songwriting your way out of a corner or something?
No, because if you think about it, like if I'm writing the first song, then none of the other songs exist yet. So it's almost like an improvisation with myself. Like you're adding this, like I set all these parameters, right, in order to avoid the blank page. Because I find it really difficult to just write about anything. I find it very difficult if someone is like, yeah, just write a song. I'm like, well, these lyrics are dumb if I'm just making this thing up off the top of my head. Like, why would I do that? And then I get into my head of like, am I just doing this to show off? Am I just writing a song for the sake of writing a song? Like, why am I doing anything? Truly. Um, so if I have a parameter, then I can kind of focus a little bit. But then it's like, yeah, it's a game of improvising with myself, at least on first drafts. So, yeah, like the first song I wrote for this one was like way back in 2020. Is the last song, right? Which is pretend that I'm a puppy that talks, but you don't know I can talk, which is a game that my daughter and I played almost every day of 2020, where she would be like a normal puppy and then turn around and start talking, and I was supposed to act surprised. And I was like, this is such a great line for a song. I got to figure it out. And so I slowly figured out how that relates to this idea of courage, right? And neighbors, right? Your immediate neighbors. The idea there is that anyone next to you could have a magic power. Anyone, your neighbor who you're not talking to, could have a hidden secret superpower that you don't know. They could be a talking puppy, right? But you never ask them. And maybe you have something more inside of you, just like they have something more inside of them. Just like the person across the street has something more inside of them. And so from then, I'm like, well, how does this puppy fit into the rest of the song? You have that song. And so then I'm, maybe someone was chased by a dog when they were a kid, and now they have this puppy as some sort of coping mechanism. Maybe there's a dog who grabs the thing at the end of the album, and that's the puppy, right? So that's where that comes from. So it's all just kind of like committing to a random thing I put in a song, and then making an Easter egg to that random thing later so that it all makes sense.
So it almost sort of feels like a little bit of a musical version of the improvisational, like yes and, isn't it?
For sure.
Where it's just sort of like, yeah, like, okay, I've done this, now I'm committed. Let's see where this goes.
Right.
Like, do you ever find yourself in a position where you're like, all right, this isn't working, back to the drawing board?
I mean, yes. What's funny is that like there's some stuff that what is this song? like the Deirdre song. I was convinced like this is not gonna work. This doesn't sound good. And it's especially tough when you have the story figured out and you realize like musically this is not good. This is not working. And yeah, Kid Koala, Eric was like, no, this one's amazing. We're gonna figure it out. We tried a bunch of stuff, and even we landed in a spot where I was like, I still don't know if this is gonna work. And I brought it home and figured it out, and it was like the best song on the album, like the one of my, in my opinion, one of the best songs. And I'm so happy that we didn't scrap it. I mean, it was the same with on Art Guard's uh, Actor Doctor, which is also the one of the best songs
I
on
love
Art
that song.
Guards. I was like,
Yeah,
this is
it's
not
one of my
going to
favorite
work.
songs on the record.
Like, this is not going to work. We even recorded everything, and I was like, this is not working. And then I sent it to my friend who put a slide guitar and an organ on it. I was like, wait, this is now the best song on the album. So, but like, yeah, for Classic Creeps and Albatross, I have scrapped full songs. I mean, and an Elephant. I've gotten a little bit better to where I don't have to fully scrap stuff. I don't think I fully scrapped anything. I had ideas of stuff that I maybe did not go all the way down the. I'm looking at the thing. Yeah, I had ideas for stuff that didn't work, but I don't. It like for Albatross, there was a full section of B-sides, and maybe Classic Creeps, like a full section of B-side. Yeah. Oh, that's right. The Nom EP, right? That was reworked B-sides of Albatross because I was writing it in order. I was like foolishly writing it in order. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone unless you're not doing a story. Yeah, I would write it in order and write a full song and then be like, this is not good. Scrap it and then use this song for something like.
Because also when I'm actually like listening through the records as well, like I think something is very impressive is that, look at some of the songs, you're saying so much about these characters. Admittedly, I think there are some times where it does feel like you're sort of pushing the lyrical boundaries to make it fit. I think my favorite example of that is in Aspiring Lighting Technician. Just the line, my dad at the back of the room wipes a tear away from his neck,
Yeah.
nods his head and says himself, she's a lighting tech. I don't know how many people wipe tears away from their neck, but it works in the context and it works so well that you're not paying attention to it. And
It
I
just
think
goes
as
all
I
the
was,
way down.
yeah, but it has to be a very like neglected tear to get all the way down there. But I think I was actually saying to my wife yesterday when I was like talking about the podcast, I was like, I always feel like to ask you about some of this stuff, it's almost like asking a magician to reveal a secret because it's like a line like that, it does what it needs to.
Yeah.
And you're not really paying attention because it works so well. It's almost like a musical sleight of hand.
Well, that was probably inspired by Hey Jude, right? Paul McCartney is always like the movement you need is on your shoulder. Like he always talks about how dumb that line is, but he just went with it. And so that has to be inspired by the tear on your neck. Shoulder is way from neck. But I always think about that.
Sort of like, oh yeah.
I always think about that. And I used to be really like uptight about tense, like saying words in the right tense. Everything has to be in the. And now I'm just like, doesn't matter. Let's mix this around however it sounds good. I mean, there's a line in Damon where it's like where I'm just jumping back and forth between present and past tense. It's like what do I say? It's like as the front door folded straight, he'd turn to me and say, or something, I'll never fall in love. It's just like all over the place.
Yeah, because you've got like present tense, past tense, and then the fact you're saying never, that's like a future tense.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like it doesn't matter with like you can't get hung up on stuff. There's so many people who write songs where it's just like if the vowels sound good, then I'm going with it. It doesn't have to mean anything. And those are some of the best songs in the world. So like, yeah, I can't get too hung up on stuff. But
that's completely fair.
Yeah. What other lyrics? What else do you want to know?
Oh, I'm really trying to think now. Well, actually, the one thing that comes to mind right away is there is a line on Art Guards. I'm actually going to very briefly look up what line it is. It's in Researching Writer, the line.
Okay.
Specifically, the line, a cat on a fence scratching his chin on every bare winter limb in the yard.
Yeah.
It feels so like unrelated to the rest of it. It just sort of
Yeah.
jumps in there.
Yeah. So I
Does that
that's
have
like a
a
literal thing that
reason?
happened to me. I saw a cat on my back fence, scratching his chin on a limb, and I was like, ah, that's cat is doing research. I was like, that's the idea I was trying to figure it like say or whatever. It's like, yeah, this cat is exploring the entire yard in order to do some sort of research. Um, yeah, that's where that came from.
That actually makes a lot of sense in hindsight. Because yeah, when I listen to it, I'm just sort of like, because that entire album, I've pretty much got the lyrics memorized, apart from when I have to actually come up and say, "What song is this from?" But I'm just sort of like, yeah, every time I listen to it, I'm like,
You're like,
this
why?
is it
What
feels
is a
apropos of nothing,
cat?
just thrown into it.
What is
Yeah,
a
because
cat?
like, because you're suddenly introducing a new character of a cat for
Yeah.
one line, basically. But hey, it
See,
gets the
I'm
job
better than
done.
that now. I wouldn't randomly throw a cat in without a callback.
Exactly. Yeah, I was actually trying to think. There's no mention to a cat elsewhere on the record, is there? um, but yeah, look, I feel that is one of the most impressive things about it is the fact that you are able to do all this, and you can put so much in there. You can throw these sort of things in there, but
Yeah.
in no way are you sort of sacrificing the song in favor of continuing the narrative.
Yeah.
But also to actually make it sound musical enough, to actually make it so it can stand alone as a song. Like that must be a difficult task as well, because making a good song is hard enough as it is, let
It,
alone when you're tying them together, trying to make it stand. Yeah.
it's a pretty slow process. I mean, like the sacrifice I'm making is putting out more music.
That is true.
um, but it's like, I mean, it's. I like doing it. I like solving puzzles, and it's like setting up your own puzzle that you get to solve. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm a
Fishboy, the thinking man songwriter, is what I'm hearing from this, or the puzzle lovers songwriter.
yeah. And it's also just this idea of like of again. It's like what have I what is an album that I would love to hear that is not in the world, and maybe I'm just not looking hard enough for this type of thing, but in my mind it's like just make it, just make the thing you want to hear. And this is the thing I'm interested in, because at the end of the day I'm just making stuff for myself, right?
Yeah. And I guess, on speaking of like making stuff for yourself, like obviously you've also got the graphic novel for Bravest
Yeah.
Neighbor in the works as well. So, I mean, that like
Yeah.
well, someone like yourself, you're doing so much work, and obviously you're also someone who does so much like marketing for yourself as well. Like, does I think I chatted about this with someone on the podcast recently, where I just sort of said, like, does it sort of take away from the love of creating by having to force yourself to actually effectively market yourself so heavily to get seen, or are you just sort of like, this is part of the process? I am aware that as someone who creates and wants it to be, it needs to be done. Like, or is it a bit of a double-edged sword?
No, I wouldn't do it if I didn't like doing it, or if I didn't have, like, I don't know if I would do it if I didn't have to do it. Like I said, I'm a video editor. That's my day job. So, and I'm a storyteller. So I'm effectively speaking into a camera, giving myself a story and video to edit. And that's fun. That's fun for me, you know. That's and the modern type of social media is like it's very similar to an artist perspective of I'm going to make this for myself, and then if someone sees it, someone sees it, because it's all a random slot machine. So I think artists are built for that type of stuff, which is I also don't get the people whining about it unless it's just a technical thing. If you just hate the technicality of it, then like I kind of get it, but there's also like plenty of valid ways to do it in a lo-fi way, um or if it's like the cringe thing, it's like I can't see myself on camera, or it's like, well, it's just a muscle you got to get over. I don't know. I do, but I am self conscious about would I be putting more music out if I wasn't having fun making videos? Would I be or making comics at night? I like you said, I've been drawing this big graphic novel adaptation of the Bravest Neighbors story, and that came from a year ago. I realized how long it was going to take to actually put the album out, and I was like, okay, well, in order to stay excited about this story and not move on, I'm going to have to expand the story into a comic, and so in that way, I keep everything fresh and still excited about it, because like if you think about other art forms, like movies, or I mean, I comics is another one where it's like this just stays in these people's minds for so long. And yeah. And that, Waitsgiving like taught me that lesson as well, is like you need to make stuff that's evergreen and not feel like, let me keep. I think that's a big flaw of I think that's a big flaw in modern music, is we got to keep moving. We got to grind out a million songs and constantly be putting them out, because that's the only way to be seen and get noticed. And they're not wrong, but I don't think that makes great art.
Yeah.
At least not for me.
Because I know that like early last year I released a book, and when I released that, I hadn't been living with it for a long time because I'd already submitted it and everything. I'd done all the editing, and it was with the publisher basically. And it wasn't until like 2 months after the book was out, I actually reread it again, and I was able to sort of like go back and be like, oh, actually, you know what? I'd buy this, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was a very bizarre thing, but I also understand why people would be so sick of having to actually sort of market themselves, because it's this sort of thing where you're sort of like, I'm in it for the creativity side. In theory, historically, someone else would take care of the marketing side. And for you to suddenly now have to wear so many different hats, it's like it can take away some of the fun. But if you actually make it fun yourself,
Yeah.
that's where the fun comes into it. But then again, I'm also someone who is like, well, I don't know. I'm the sort of person. I recently launched a Substack, and on that Substack, I said, I'm giving this away for free. I wouldn't pay for my own writing. Why would anyone else? And
Right.
it's that sort of self-deprecation sort of thing. I
Right.
don't know. I feel like rambling, but I feel like you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard, but it's also, I accept that it's part of the medium now. And once you
Mhm.
just accept that this is part of it, then you're able to move forward. Like I said, I'm a shy person. Once I accept that I have to get in front of everyone and play a song and sing and speak, then like, okay, that's what's going to happen. I have to do it. I put myself in this uncomfortable situation. Let's do it. And releasing art, releasing music, and accepting that, okay, now I have to be able to speak about it and do something creative and post the video, then I mean, and there's so many times where I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Go.
Yeah.
But and it's also like part of the courage thing, right? I've been this past couple years, I've been putting myself in so many uncomfortable situations just because I tell myself this is for the courage album. You gotta do it. You gotta be brave. You gotta fly to Montreal and not know what's gonna happen. You gotta create a fake holiday again or whatever. I've been doing all these weird stunts this year. I've created this Price Master holiday this year. Like, so incredibly uncomfortable for me to get out in front of a bunch of people. And just, it's just, you gotta go for it. Social media is part of it. Incredibly uncomfortable, but uh it's part of it, man. Part of it.
That's
Also,
completely
and
fair.
also back to the thing of like, sorry, I'm still talking, I'm still rambling. Um
You're fine. This whole podcast is built around the idea of rambling. That's why I think this is on track to be the longest episode we've ever had. That's completely fine by me.
well, feel free to edit whatever out.
Everything stays.
But also it is part of like, how I've been trying to put this in the right in the right sort of video, but the idea of like when people say they're all my when people say all my art is my baby, right? I'm not saying this right. But when artists say I can't choose a favorite, they're all my babies, right? And everyone is disgusted by that phrase. It's like, don't call your art your babies. That's gross. What they're really doing is saying, this is no longer a part of me. This thing is no longer a part of me. In order for me to not feel like a complete egotistical trash human, I have to separate the art from the artist when it comes to myself, and I have to be able to talk about this thing as if I didn't make it, and I have to push this thing into the world as if it is going to find a home for someone who is going to really like it, and it's going to improve their lives. And that's such a huge part about posting online. You know, uh, uh, do your art justice and help your art, help your little thing go into the world and find its home. You don't have to call it your baby, though.
Words to live by, honestly. And because, as I said, like, I feel like Art Guards was very helpful in me sort of like reckoning with my own creativity. And I also even feel like, Bravest Neighbor is like also doing the same sort of thing where it's like
Awesome.
it's helping sort of that level of confidence. I mean, hell, I'm playing a gig today in like 6 hours time or something. It's an early afternoon show.
Awesome.
Because I've been up since 4 a.m.
Oh
And
boy.
and I'm just sort of like, you know what? At this point of the day, I'm like, I don't think I can really put myself out in public. But I'm like, you know what? I might listen to Bravest Neighbor on the way, and I'm sure I'll be
Yeah.
fine. So, you know,
Amazing.
yeah,
Like, and I'm so glad that the thing is clicking with you because I walked around with it in my head for years or whatever. And, I'm like walking through a parking lot with headphones on crying, like, and it feels like it's such a surreal experience to create a piece of art that like triggers yourself emotionally and no one else has heard it. It feels like, why would any reasonable person do this? It feels like a form of insanity, you know? It's like, wait a second, you're crying over something you did to yourself, over a character that doesn't exist. What are you doing? And so, like, to hear the first people that I give it to they actually like understand the story and connect with it is like, that's like success. Let's all go home. It works for other people.
well, job done, and you've done a great job. And I guess the question I always love to sort of ask at the end of, before we get into the final section, is, what does an album like this say about who Fishboy is in 2026? And I'm aware that's a difficult question because of the fact the album was done in like 2024 in theory and then recorded. So,
It
but
still
you get what I'm saying.
applies.
What does it say about who you are?
It still applies. Like, I want neighbors talking to each other. I want people talking to each other. I want you to have a little bit of empathy for the people who are closest to you, who you may not be thinking about. Um, at the very minimum, I just want you to be thinking about, the struggles and the lives of everyone around you. And that is my tiny contribution to the world. You know, again, if no one hears it, then I'm saying it to myself, and it's a message that I need to hear over and over again. And if more people hear it, then great. You know, that'll hopefully have a positive impact on the world. What it says about me, to answer your question, is that I am a scared, introverted individual
And
who
incredibly busy as
prefers
well,
to
by the sounds
stay
of
at
it.
home. Who prefers to stay at home and not get out of his comfort zone. But and I also think that's kind of like a just an age thing. It's like, you know, people getting up to middle age are they stay in their comfort zone. They don't want to leave. Um, and I think it is very it speaks to that. It speaks to that. It speaks to the elder millennials right now, and it speaks to the parents as well. I am a young parent, and so people who are trying to make the world better for their kids, you know.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds great.
Also, I would say like it's maybe my most vulnerable album. Um, it also speaks to like maybe I'm out of creative ideas and I just need to go more vulnerable.
So I guess what will like I mean, where can you go from here then? Because like this album
Yeah,
feels so much more like
yeah.
you've leveled up to an insane degree. Like, I mean, obviously you don't want to let any trade secrets out of the bag, but what is next then?
Okay, well this is a secret. This is an exclusive. I'm giving you this exclusive. Um, Danny is writing an album in the story, and I've written a bunch of that album. So that is probably going to be the next one. If you remember the story of Danny DeChamp, he gets 48 albums from the trash that are all melted, and he's writing songs about their artwork. So I've been writing songs about album artwork. That's probably next.
Amazing. I mean, I actually that just triggered a memory in my mind when I was in like 10th grade and maybe ninth grade, and I started writing this little story in English class. And it was just about this little character I made called Kevin. And part of the idea was that Kevin had like 18 siblings, and I was going to write 18 stories about each one of the siblings.
Bring
But
him back.
that well, it fell apart after the second one when I realized there's only so many like times I can make this story, and it just sounds so repetitive and redundant by the end of it. I just thought, you know what, I'm going to end on a high and end with a sequel.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I actually have the story, like actually probably in my closet next to me, right next to, funnily enough, next to
If
this little
anyone,
little guy, which I've got
oh,
hanging
amazing,
over there. Yeah.
amazing. If anyone can do it, you can do it.
Well, I will
We
do my
believe in you.
best. I'll see how we go. Well, look, I feel like I should get down to the portion of the podcast in which its namesake is derived. So hopefully, I'm not going to take up too much of your afternoon, which you've so graciously given to me. But look, a trusty chord sees me follow the 1-3-5 structure of a standard chord. So I ask about one artist that's been impactful, 3 albums that have influenced you, and 5 songs you can always turn to. These songs and albums don't need to be by the same artist and all that sort of stuff. And this is a wordy explanation. One day I will get it down to an elevator pitch, but we don't care about elevator pitches on this podcast, do we, Eric? So, my first question for you here would be, who is the one artist that has inspired you the most, whether it be personally or creatively?
Oh man, I should have done my homework and had answers for you.
I gave you this question about 3 weeks ago. I'm kidding. It's completely
Did
fine.
you?
I think I did. I think I did in the email.
Oh
There's
no. Oh no.
it's totally fine.
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say my older brother who got me into music is he has a band and he is definitely the most influential person on setting me in this direction. If that I don't know if that's a cop out answer or not.
No, not at all. I mean, if you want, actually, let me know what the name of that band is, so we can give it a
He's
little
called
bit of
Cave
time.
Dweller. Is he plays music under the name Cave Dweller? Um,
I feel. I was going to say, have I would I have heard of him before? Because that's a very familiar sounding name.
I think I don't know. There's a couple. I think there's like a metal band named Cave Dweller as well.
I'm looking this up right now, but by all means, feel free to keep talking on that front while I quickly do some
Yeah,
Googling.
that's super influential. And then the other one was 3 albums. What was
Yeah,
the
3
next one?
albums that you could always. Oh, sorry, the 3. I should know my own podcast by
Three
now. What
artists.
was my question for
Three.
you? Sorry, I've done the one artist that impacted you. 3 albums that have been influential to you.
I wish I could look at my phone, but I'm using it as a camera. 3 albums. What are the albums I always go back to? I mean, I don't like I said, I love Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies. I love the Kinks, but they don't really have a single album. I would say Arthur by the Kinks, but that would be a lie because I jump all over their catalog. Um, I don't know, man. I just went to the 20th anniversary or 30th anniversary of Tiger Milk by Belle and Sebastian. That's one of my
Oh
favorite
yeah,
albums. Those first 2 Belle and Sebastian's albums are like ingrained in my psyche. If you listen to Fishboy with Belle and Sebastian in mind, you'll be like, oh yeah, he got this from that and this from that.
I do really love Belle and Sebastian. They're a gorgeous band.
Um, I really like Kill the Moonlight by Spoon. Spoon is one of my favorite bands. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I am indeed. They're also a Texas band, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a Texas
Yeah.
band. And like Daniel Johnston is a big influence on this album as well. Other Texas artists. That could be my number one artist. but again, that a lot of the more simple songs on this album, it's like trying to approach it like Daniel Johnston. Okay, I don't know. That's three.
That's
Daniel
three. Yeah,
Johnston
I mean,
greatest hits. Hi, how are you? Yip jump music.
as you can see, I'm writing this down so I don't have to go through the editing process later on and be like, what did he say? But look, I mean, like, yeah, so Bell and Sebastian, Spoon, Daniel
Yeah,
Johnston, we go with those, will we?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Oh, and I can also throw in Daniel Johnston as your as a bit of an honourable mention for your artist, if you like, as well, so we
Well,
can make
it's.
sure that your brother gets some love.
I mean, yeah, you got to do the. Wait, let's go with Daniel Johnston and not my brother. Let's throw my brother out. Let's go. Let's go, Daniel Johnston.
All right, bye to Eric's brother. Was it actually? I was trying to look it up. Was it Derek Michener? Is that your
Dirk.
brother? Dirk?
Dirk.
D-I-R-K? Yeah, because I was trying to work out if that was the cave dweller I was aware of, and I think it actually is.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So it all comes full circle here on this podcast. And my final question for you would be the five songs you can always turn to, whether it be for comfort, for excitement, anything at all, your five trusty songs.
Oh man. Okay. So five trusty songs. Oh gosh. Why didn't I have these ready?
It is also so totally fine if you think of others after the fact and you're like, I should have said these. I can always throw them into the mix because the beauty of this podcast is that, like, despite me saying five songs, I once had someone give me like 20 songs, and that was a hell of a thing to
Am I
add
allowed
up.
to cheat and pull up iTunes?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Um, I mean, if I just use the people I already said, I mean, I like that song "Worried Shoes" by Daniel Johnston. I found out that I was probably born the week that he wrote that song. I just got it on vinyl, and it says like 80 written May 83, and like Daniel Johnston famously recorded the songs as he wrote them, recorded them in order and then passed the tape. So I think that there's a huge potential within a weak margin of error that Daniel Johnston wrote Worried Shoes the day I was born.
I really like to imagine the idea that Daniel Johnson's just like there in his like songwriting room, and he's just sort of like, hold up, I think I
Yeah,
hear a new Texan just bought. I need to write a song
yeah,
for him or something.
yeah. I love that song. I mean, he has so many good songs. Um, I like True Love Will Find You in the End is like, that's like all time. The Story of an Artist, all time. I could just name you my five Daniel Johnston songs. I've been on like a big Thief kick the past 5 years. Those and Adrian Linker has so many good songs. Um, I'm just see you just like caught me scrolling through everything alphabetically. Um, the Beatles. I'm a really big Beck fan, but what is the song? What is the Beck song? I don't know. Really big Bell and Sebastian fan. But what is the song? We got to get it for the list. Let's say I don't know. I'm also someone who overthinks things like crazy. So it's like, how can I pick something that is going to sit on a website forever and be the definitive Fishboy favorite song?
See, I had a similar issue recently because I was invited into a radio recording on ABC, which is like the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and I was chatting to the host, and he was just he just randomly sort of says, "Oh, you got this podcast. What are your top three albums?" And I'm like, "I've never answered this question. Oh God, now I'm put in the same position," and it was hell. So I understand what you're going through.
I like that song. I like that song "Two Sisters" by the Kinks. Do you know that song?
I do, yeah. I can't remember the album it's from, but I do know it.
That song is from something else by the Kinks. That song is like the perfect like short storytelling song. Um, it tells an entire story of like this sister's jealous of this sister, and then this happens, and now she's not jealous of her sister. But it does it in such a human, like emotional way, which is also funny. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Let's put that one. What are we up to?
Well, it depends how I guess you like what I actually
I
clarify
said
because
a
we've
bunch
got
of Daniel Johnston songs.
well, yeah. So we've got Daniel Johnson's Worry Shoes. We've got King's Two Sisters. You've mentioned more Daniel Johnson. We've got Big Thief, Beatles, and Beck. I mean,
Yeah, but those aren't songs.
they aren't songs; they're just artists, but they are good artists, though.
Um, I really like the Silver Jews as well.
Oh yeah,
I like that song "Random Rules."
I love that song. Actually, I was recently actually working on trying to I was actually trying to do a cover of that song recently because it just so happens that David Berman's voice fits my range very perfectly. Plus, he's got that well, he had that general malaise of in life, and I was like, I I resonate. So,
That's one of my favorite songs. Um, I got to see one of his last shows. It was really cool. Uh, I'm trying to think of like the big artists. Like, what's my favorite? Oh man, like the Velvet Underground. I'm all the way scrolled all the way to the V's. Man, I like that song "Sweet Jane" a lot. That's another thing where it's like that he's like telling a story, uh, and you get these glimpses. They talk about like sitting down by the fireside or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You know that song, right?
I 100% know that song. Yeah, I mean, I love that song. I've also always loved the Cowboy Junkies version of that song.
Yeah,
That one really took me out. I adore that version.
and then I like that line where it's like some people go out dancing and some people gotta work. It's like I love that line.
I always feel
Um,
like that's a really great example of good songwriting, where it's like it's those sort of lines that they feel so simple, but when you really dissect them, they say so much.
yeah,
And it really like that line by itself could be an entire song. I
yeah.
love that sort of thing.
And then I also I love when people like say other mention other songs. That was probably like an inspiration for the aspiring lighting technician, where I say like the Tchaikovsky dance, right? Because in Sweet Jane, he says the dance of the wooden soldier plays, right? It says like sit
Yeah,
down
yeah.
by the fire. I love that. I love that. I've made a video about this like years ago, where I love when people mention that other songs in songs. Um, 13 by Big Star,
Yeah. That's a gorgeous song.
where he's like, where he says, "Tell your dad what we thought about Painted Black." That is such a good line because it's like, it goes from vague to specific. It's like so specific. Tell him what we thought about this Rolling Stones song, Painted Black. And then your mind starts thinking about what their conversation was about
Mm.
Painted Black. And it narrows down the time frame, right? 1960, what is it, 66 or something. So then you have like a perspective and you have this other thing, all with like 10 words, and it takes this like vague, let me take you walk you home from school. It's like the perfect song are the songs that are able to mix that vague universal stuff and then drop in something very specific that is still holds that nugget of universality. I think that one. So let's go 13. Let's go Sweet Jane. Let's go Worried Shoes. Let's go, what was my other one?
I had Random Rules.
Random Rules.
I think that's five.
That's five.
Yeah. Of course, if you think of anything else after the fact, feel free to like if you say, hey, you
Wait,
know
what
what, I
did I
should have said that
say?
one.
We got
So
Sweet
you
Jane,
had
Worried Shoes.
sorry, we had Warwick Shoes, Daniel Johnston, Kink's Two Sisters, Silver Jews, Random Rules, Velvet Underground, Sweet Jane, and Big Stars 13.
Oh, that's a good list. That's a good
And
playlist.
also, yeah, it's a great playlist. But also, just actually quickly on the 13 as well. I think the one good thing about that line that you mentioned as well is that we don't know what they said about Painted Black.
Right.
They could be like that itself is like it could be going either way. It could be like them championing the song. It could be them saying, "Wow, the Rolling Stones really fell off with Painted Black, didn't they?"
Well, he says rock and roll is here to stay. So it's something
Yeah,
about this is the world changed or something, or we're never going back, or, for better or worse,
Mm.
but it's also, but the line before is like, tell your dad to get off our back. Tell him what we said about painted.
Which is such a brilliantly like simple line by itself. Like that song is so brilliantly written. I love that song so much. That whole Big Star album actually is gorgeous.
Painted, but wait, you love Painted Black or you love this song of 13?
Actually, both of them really. I mean,
Yeah, but like,
I
what
love
would
some Big
you?
Star. I love the Rolling Stones.
But yeah, I mean, that's such a great line because it's like, what did you say? Yeah, what did you say about Painted Black? I'm now I'm gonna think forever about what can they possibly say? Something about like, because Painted Black is not about parents.
No. Well, I mean, actually, I decided to pull up a genius.com because,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah. What does it
annotations on
say?
lyrics.
Tell me
Well,
what
it says,
Genius says about Painted Black.
well, it says the father of the narrator's love interest doesn't seem fond of him, which is obvious. He hopes to help win his favor by sharing the presumably nice things they said about Painted Black, a song by the Rolling Stones. That the father and the children like the song is a nod to the difference in their ages. So I guess they're finding the common ground then, in that he's trying to sort of lessen the
Oh,
chasm between the ages by saying, "Hey, we like this song," which is
but
not at
hold
all how
on.
I ever thought about it.
What year was 13 put out?
13 was 1972, I think.
And then Painted Black that doesn't track.
It doesn't make much sense. I mean,
Painted
I
Black
guess though,
64,
I'm
66,
looking it up.
60.
66. So there's a 6 year difference. So
So
I
they're saying
guess
that their dad is so their dad was a Rolling Stones fan, but now he's out of touch 6 years later. I guess from
I
a
think what it may
13-year-old.
be from a 13-year-old's point of view, it might sort of be like, "Hey, Dad, you don't think that or sorry, hey, my girlfriend's father, you might not think that I am, mature enough to be dating your daughter or something. But hey, look, we've got common ground. I also like Paint It Black, right? That
I
song
don't
six
think
years
so.
ago. Remember
I
that?
think
Yeah, I know. It's hard to say, but that's at least what Genius is telling us we should be listening to.
I mean, so if you're I mean, if you and this is what I do when I write songs and I hit some sort of wall. I start playing the logic game for the characters about when they were
I'm
born.
glad I'm not the only one who does that with lyrics.
But so if he had, so 13 in 1972, you were born in what year?
59, presuming that
So this guy was a young parent in 1959, and Paint It Black didn't come out for 7 more years. So
yeah, I
if you
mean, a lot can change in 6 years, I guess, is what I'm saying. But I mean, obviously, the song is from the
that
point of
doesn't
view of
track, is
the
all I'm
child and the
saying.
love.
You want to say a
Yeah,
song from 1958 if you want to get on the good side of the parent.
like Kathy's Clown or something like that, wherever
Yeah,
that one came from. When did Kathy's Clown come out?
tell your dad to
Kathy's Clown was 57. That works.
get
We'll go with that.
off the get off the ground. Tell him what we said about Kathy's Clown.
See, that's why you're the songwriter here. That's why this podcast will say Eric
This
Michener and
is the
not Tyler
most
Jenkins.
interesting part of this conversation.
Yeah, we can just scratch the rest of it. Who cares about Bravest Neighbor? It's
But
all about 13.
but like on that song, Dextra, right? I was trying to think of a D name, and I was like, I don't have a good D name that's interesting. And I started looking up Texas towns, right, that start with D, and I found this town called Dextra, which is a ghost town next to Nacogdoches. And so I was like, okay, well this person is from Nacogdoches. That's why in the bridge it says she doesn't know I know this. She comes from Nacogdoches. I got a piece of postage by mistake, which for my money is the greatest Fishboy line I've ever written.
See, the second that I heard Nacogdoches, I was expecting the word precocious to be like rhymed in some way. And I was like, well, look,
Too
you can save that for
obvious.
Bravest Neighbor too. Oh well. Well, look, for fear of keeping you here for hours upon end, I feel like this is where I should probably say, Eric Michener, I want to say thank you so very much for your time today and for being
Yeah.
part of the Thoughts podcast as well.
Thanks for talking to me. I had a blast. And thank you for all the love you've shown Fishboy over the years. Means a lot. I know, like, especially like small artists, any tag they get, any mention is just fuel to keep going. So, I mean, your two or three times something pops up, it's like, well, it's all worth it if Tyler likes this. I don't know Tyler yet, but it's all worth it.
Well, it's all about turning you into a big fish in a small pond, right? That's a very
exactly.
laboured way of putting it.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you listened to this episode and enjoyed it, I would really appreciate it if you were able to take a few moments to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. As always, there is no obligation to do so, but considering that it helps the podcast's reach, I am forever grateful if you do. As always, I'm over on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast. That's all one word. And I've also got the blog on my website, which is tylerjenke.com. That's tylerjenke/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. That's where you can find a list of all the songs chosen by my guests each week, along with a playlist of all the songs chosen thus far. You can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform where you can throw me a few dollars to keep this podcast running if you feel so inclined. I also need to thank Eric for spending his time with me this week for the podcast, and usually this is where I'd thank whoever helped organize the podcast, but considering it was just me and Eric, I'm going to thank Eric again. And I guess thanks Tyler for reaching out to Eric. Good work everyone. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.